President Calvin Coolidge once said, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." And in fall 2021, I was as persistent and determined as ever. While in a manic episode, to remained adherent to my delusions, of which there were many, trust me. What's going on, everybody? And today, I'm going to talk about some personal stuff. So for those of you who are new to this channel, I'll first just say that I'm 25 years old. My name is Tyler Adolfo. I was recently expelled from college. I was recently arrested and I'm currently awaiting a court date due to a fight that I got into while in a manic episode. Those are just a few things about me. So I've been making bipolar content for my channel, but for today's video, I'm going to specifically talk about this manic episode that got me hospitalized. And I'm going to talk about what it was like being in the hospital while manic. Because as you can imagine, it's a very terrifying experience. At the time that I was hospitalized, this is October 27th, 2021, and it was at midnight, by the way. I remember I was having suicidal thoughts. I had this obsession with media coverage, specifically like seeing patterns and connections in media coverage that do not actually exist in reality. And I had this intense internal fear about pretty much everyone, everybody, and everything, about what people were thinking and doing. This one's thinking this one's doing that. And none of it was grounded in reality. For example, I had a member of my frat that I thought was going to seriously harm myself and a friend of mine. And I thought this for completely illogical reasons that were not grounded in reality. And that's what bipolar does. That's what mania, being in that excited state, does. So I understand that. But I can't convey this enough, is that it was just so overwhelming. Right? The feeling of being overwhelmed. That's what mania really is. Overworked, overactive, overhyper. Overwhelmed is the word I would use to describe the feeling that I was having. And I was so overwhelmed. I remember making phone calls to my friends, some of whom I haven't talked to in years, trying to employ their assistance in my fictional endeavors and these delusions that I was adhering to, trying to get them to agree with what I was saying and to help me do what I want to do. And one of these phone calls is what ultimately got me hospitalized, because my friend from high school, Connor Brennan, really great friend of mine from high school, he saw that something was seriously wrong and off about me and my mannerisms in that phone call and the way that I was talking so speedily, and he astutely sensed the fear that he had in my voice. So after our phone call, he called the police on me. And I remember being at Campus Pond a little bit after our phone call with two other friends of mine who were with me. And paramedics and police arrived and took me to the hospital. Now, I got to say right off the bat that these police officers, these particular police officers, were some of the nicest I've ever seen or met. I expect people to be confrontational in that situation when you're dealing with someone who is so completely out of it. You kind of expect like equal reaction, but they were able to maintain professionalism despite the intensity of my activity and behavior in that moment, which I do appreciate. And I realize this is hindsight, but I just remember at the moment being like unrelentingly aggravated about the police and paramedics not agreeing with the delusions that I was experiencing. They, of course, tried to calm me and talk me down, but all efforts to alleviate the concerns and intense fear that I was feeling were ultimately unsuccessful. So they take me to the hospital, and by the time I get to the hospital, they take all my technology away. That's what they do when you get hospitalized for this type of thing, is they take your technology away. And they took my vitals, and they ran a few other tests. Vitals came back good. I didn't test positive for any drugs, because that's not what this is. Was a mental illness. And a lot of people will, ask me, and it's a fair question, like, were you doing any drugs? Were you doing this or that? Because there's a lot of misconceptions about bipolar too, that, if you have bipolar, it must be drug influenced or drug related to behave in such a way. But of course, we know that it's not true. When I was in the hospital, I wasn't admitted to the psych ward upstairs immediately. I originally had to stay downstairs, and the downstairs section was absolutely terrible and terrifying, I gotta say. Just absolutely terrifying. The food was disgusting. Radical thing I know I'm about to say, but I'm not a big fan of cheese. Only on pizza and very, very few things, but I'm not a big fan of cheese, and like every food item they would bring me had cheese on it. And it was a really gross, disgusting food item. Like, it was worse. I'll say this right now, I didn't go to jail till later, but the food I had in jail was better than the food that I had in this hospital waiting area for the psych ward, which is saying an awful, awful lot. So I was in there for a long time, and my manic episode only kind of escalated while being in the hospital, because it's not like I was on any medications or anything of that nature. And some of the fears I was having was, the food they bring me, the staff is gonna try to poison me, or the doctor has a German-sounding last name. He could possibly be a Nazi agent. Like, right? These are the brilliant connections that you make when you're in that manic state. At least that's what the case was for me. I've heard about many others doing things that are very similar. So that's kind of what it was like downstairs. I was afraid of everything. Afraid to eat the food. Afraid to go to the bathroom. Afraid to ask to use my phone. Just a lot. Very overwhelming. That's putting it lightly, if you want to be a little lighthearted about it. Then eventually I got sent upstairs after a couple of days of being downstairs. So now I'm in the psych ward. And it's a little bit better up here in the sense that, they have coffee and snacks that you can access at any time. But I still had a strong sense of distrust and fear of all the staff and all the patients on the floor. And so my mental situation didn't actually get any better by moving up to the second floor. I wasn't put on any permanent medications. They just had me take this pill like a couple of times over the course of the days I was there. And then once they released me, I wasn't on anything again. So, I kind of, went to this hospital, and it only made my manic episode a whole lot worse. I gotta say, while I was there, that the staff was mostly very professional and courteous and kind and understanding. But there were many areas where you could clearly see they were overwhelmed. And just one example is we couldn't even do something as basic as go outside each day. So think about how you have the ability right now to go outside if you so will. And you can do that at any time that you want. Nothing's preventing you from doing so. And I love going outside. While I was in that hospital, I went outside one time, and it was for 10 minutes. We're supposed to get daily sessions to go outside while we were there. They had it hung up on a big wall, but they would never do it. They would only take 3 patients to go outside each day of the 30 of us that were in there in that particular psych ward floor. So that was very difficult. As you can imagine, I was very antagonistic with a lot of the staff, and I don't know if you could really blame me, because if you've been in that state of mind, there's not much you can do to control what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. Entering and exiting that hospital made my mania worse, and it set me up for a catacomb of consequences that would very quickly follow once I left the hospital, and only made situations in my life much worse. I wish, looking back on it, that there would have been someone there who said, yes, he cannot be released, or yes, he needs to go on some kind of medications. As much as I dislike so many elements of psych wards, the putting you in a gown and stripping you of your individuality, being set to a very strict schedule, and being trapped and isolated in this one place, there were so many things they could have done to help me that could have put me on a trajectory to where today I could still be at university instead of expelled. I could still be in my frat and still be connected with all my friends instead of embarrassed and banned off social media due to radical things that I was posting while in that state. So it wasn't a mixed experience. It was quite fixed in that it was terrifying, it was terrible, and it is most certainly something that I don't want to go through again. And this was from October 27th of 2021 till November 2nd of 2021, just to give some context on that timeline and where we are today. Recording this in 2023, of course. But that's it. That was why I got hospitalized for mania and what it was like being in the hospital with mania. I hope this video gave some understanding and insight. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button down below, and comment if there's any other content on bipolar you would like me to possibly do. I'd love suggestions, and I would definitely consider it. I also make a lot of other content on my channel if you want to check any of that out as well. So I appreciate you all. Love and light to all. Hope you all have an amazing day.